Whether it's to mark the end of Lent or you just enjoy the taste, hot cross buns are easy to make. Hi, I'm Dan. I'm Dad in the kitchen. I have my ingredients weighed out. So let's get going, because this is going to take a couple of hours. For this recipe you'll need 620 grams of bread flour, 2 grams of mixed spice, 5 grams of cinnamon, 5 grams of salt, 250 grams of mixed dried fruit, 90 grams of sugar, 15 grams of yeast, 350 grams of milk, 90 grams of butter, 1 large egg, 5 grams of bread improver and 20 grams of oil not displayed. Vegans use the milk substitute of your choice. Substitute the butter for margarine and your preference to which egg replacer that you use. So now we'll make a ferment. I've taken out 1/4 cup of flour, the yeast and a tablespoon of sugar from the ingredients, along with the milk, which is 40 degrees Celsius, which is 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Mix them all together until they're nice and smooth. Cover with cling wrap and we'll set that aside for about half an hour to activate the yeast to make sure it's alive. And well, really important step this one, don't bypass it because it really makes a difference to the end product. Here is the bread improver, which can be found in the flour aisle at the supermarket. I just make sure that in the ingredients it doesn't have a whole lot of numbers, and there's just some no-name vegetable oil. And after the mixture has stood for about 30 minutes, just check to make that it's all nice and foamy and bubbly like this. If it's not, tip this mixture out, it's dead, and get rid of your yeast and go get some new stuff. Don't continue because your hot cross buns just won't work. I'm going to use my stand mixer from here to place the ferment into the bowl of your stand mixer, and then if you want to do this by hand you can do so. You just need a big bowl, and it's going to take a little bit longer and burn a few more calories. It's all good. So we'll put all the dry ingredients together, the flour, the spice, salt, bread improver and the cinnamon, and whisk them all together to ensure that they're all evenly distributed. Now we'll just set that aside. And now into the yeast mixture we'll add the butter, which I just pre-diced, and it will just go into the yeast mixture, which is fairly cool. It won't melt the butter, you don't want that. Then we'll add in the egg, the oil, then we'll pop in the sugar, then we'll put the dry ingredients in, and then we'll follow with the fruit. And if when you open the packet of fruit it looks all dry and nasty, just let it steep in about 1/4 cup of boiling hot water, or 1/4 cup of hot tea to reconstitute. And then just add an extra couple of tablespoons of flour into the mixture to bring it all back. Once you've got it into the stand mixer, give it a little mix around to incorporate all the ingredients, make sure that everything's dampened, and then scrape down the sides and the bottom of the bowl just to ensure that there's no pockets of dry ingredients not getting mixed in. Then we'll pop that up and turn it on to speed 3 for about 10 minutes. If you're doing this by hand, you're going to have to knead it for about 10-15 minutes, depending on how well that you knead your dough. As you can see, the changes that the dough goes through, and as you can see it's nice and elastic and well coloured. And then we'll pop it out of the bowl, and we won't be able to do the window test here, but I'll show you another method to see that it's been developed enough. We're just kneading it back into a ball, and then fold it under, push the outside, and if it bounces back it's ready. So we'll lightly spray oil into a bowl, pop the dough in, and then we'll spray the top of the dough. Then I let the dough prove inside my microwave with 2 cups of boiling hot water in diagonal corners, and it takes about 45 minutes to an hour. Works brilliantly in a nice warm humid environment. Yeast seems to love it. Then after it took me about 35 minutes for this one to actually prove. As you can see, it's puffed up more than double. It's really light, full of gases. And now we'll just gently knead it back into a ball, and then we'll get some scales and we'll weigh it. If you haven't got yourself a set of scales, I would suggest that you get some. It just makes cooking a whole lot more accurate. And now the weight that's displayed on the scales, divide by 12, and then divide the dough into 12 equal pieces of the weight that you've did the maths for. Then if you have all nice even sized pieces of dough to work with, all the buns cook evenly and at the same time. Roll them together, pop them aside, and once I've done the last one, I have a 9x13 baking tray sitting off to the side that's been lightly oiled, and I then have the dough sitting there in the little balls, and it's been sitting for 5 minutes. I just give them a quick roll again before putting them into the tin, just to tighten them back up to help with the shape. Put them in nicely spread out in the tin. Spray the cling film with some vegetable oil, and then my 9x13 fits back into my microwave, and I just have 2 fresh cups of boiling hot water in there, once again in diagonal corners, and let these rise until they're doubled. And just before I take them out, I make a piper ball dough to put on for the crosses, which is 1 heaped tablespoon of sugar and 3 of plain flour and 2 teaspoons of just a plain vegetable oil, and just with enough water to make it smooth and a pipeable consistency. And then when you're adding the water, you want it so it's thin enough to pipe well, but you don't want it so loose that it just runs off the edge of the buns and just becomes a horrible nasty mess. But you don't want it that dry and thick that when it bakes it turns hard and snaps in your mouth, because that can be unpleasant too. If you don't want to add the sugar and the oil, that's fine. And I'm just using a round open tip nozzle to pipe it. If you don't have them, don't panic, just use a Ziploc bag and just cut the corner off, but don't make the hot too big. As you can see, the buns are puffed up really nicely. Pipe across, touching down in between each bun, and then so when you're cooked and you go to break them off, they break off evenly. Don't take all the crosses off all the buns. Then go across the tin the other way. Just so you know, when I write left-handed, but when I write on cakes or do lines, I do it right-handed. Not sure why that happens. Then pop into a 230 degree oven, and then as soon as I pop them in, I turn it down to 210, which is 445 Fahrenheit down to 410. After about 10 minutes, I take the buns out if they're the colour that I want. Then I place a foil cover over the baking tray, then pop them back into the oven for the other 25 minutes, and then bring them out and check to make sure that they're cooked. Do this with the instant read thermometer, and you're looking for them to be over 93 degrees Celsius. And in this particular instance, they weren't, and so I have to pop them back in for another 5 minutes, which gave me just enough time to make a quick simple syrup, which is just 1/4 cup of sugar with 1/4 cup of boiling water straight out of the kettle, and then just stir it until the sugar dissolves. Then check the buns again after the 5 minutes was up, and once again the beauty of the instant read thermometer showed me that they were at the right temperature. Then just brush over the top of the buns, make them all nice and shiny, tip them out and let them cool. And there you have 12 of the nicest, freshest homemade hot cross buns you could hope to eat. Then if you choose not to put the foil cover over, they'll be a little bit darker but still soft and tasty. They just look like that. The choice is yours. Thanks for watching. If you liked, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, share with friends. Thanks for watching. I'm Dan, I'm Dad in the Kitchen, and I'll see you next time. Miss me.